He tasks me, and I shall have him. I'll chase him round Nibia, around the Antares maelstrom, and round perdition's flames before I give him up. Now, if you can't believe it, my task is to make giant coffee cups. And we've got the D20 can. T-Rex skull coming out like a champ. Here we've got that piece of wall art that keeps selling. Also got another big Sharky produce. You know we got that alley skull action. And here, yes, we are producing the Space Fighter. The Space Fighter ship that was previewed previously. Well, you know what time it is now. It's time for Welcome to M3is3D. Every day I shoot a short film documenting a slice of life of the 3D printing entrepreneur. We've been in business for 6 years. This is how it all works. We got a bunch of kids to drop off at daycare. Man, it is really nice again today. Guy behind the counter told me that he watches the show. Big shout out to that guy. We're doing something special today. In my hands again. Don't remember, but I do. We've got a very special Duncan. This is a very special episode of The Duncan Show. On this very special episode, we explore the inside of Duncan. Our Duncans ourselves. Oh yeah, we're sitting outside at the Dunk. I don't know what got me thinking about this exactly, but I sort of think of there as being two theories of evil that people have in the world, broadly speaking. I think it was just memories of working fast food. Obviously, just get me thinking about the question of evil. If you've never dealt with the general public, perhaps this wouldn't intuitively feel like a question you would associate with fast food. I think we could kind of call the two theories of evil the Judeo-Christian theory of evil, or the Abrahamic view of evil, and the Buddhist, East Asian view of evil. Actually, I don't really know what Confucius thought about evil per se, but let's just call it the Buddhist theory of evil. I think the reason these two categories are useful is it's actually bigger than that. It's not just like Christians think this and Buddhists think this. I think these are like the two ways of thinking about evil. Some more caffeine for this one. So I think the right way of thinking about what we could call the Judeo-Christian view of evil is that some people are inherently evil, and everybody has a certain amount of evil or has some evil tendencies or something like that. It's kind of this idea that the individual has this quality and that's just a thing. Like, it doesn't matter how much you examine it or rationalize it, it's just there. People just have tendencies to do bad things or immoral things. In contrast, what we could kind of call the Buddhist view, it's larger than that, but we'll just call it that, is the idea that while this is true, most people do wrong things or bad things, or however you want to say it. Most people do those things because of their own ignorance or their lack of wisdom, however you want to say it. It's the idea that evil is mostly ignorance. And see, like, the question that I'm kind of approaching to these two theories is like, okay, which of these is better? Maybe that's just how my brain is wired, but that's kind of what I naturally wonder. As I've said in previous videos, I'm an ordained minister. You know where I'm naturally inclined to come from. But it's like you kind of have to give the Buddhist view some credit, because when you actually think about how life works, everybody has at least the opportunity to get better. And I mean, this is in Christianity. Obviously, the idea that you can be made to understand why things are wrong is a very Christian idea. So it's in there, but what we're calling the Buddhist view kind of focuses on that more. I would say, as somebody who's read the Bible a whole bunch of times and is very thorough, has a pretty thorough understanding of it, I would say that there are kind of two ideas in Christianity when it comes to realizing your sin, basically. You know, there's definitely the divine revelation thing where God is like showing you, he's putting conviction in your heart about what you've done wrong. But there also is very much this idea of like, you're just growing in wisdom and you look back and you're like, oh, I was an idiot. So, you know, you got both of those. But I guess then in contrast, the Buddhist view is more like it's all growing in wisdom versus like some divine thing. So yeah, it's like, which one of these comports more with reality? Which one fits with how the world actually is more? I like how there are just people going through the drive-thru right here. So I think where I land on this issue is thus: if we're just rolling with the idea that most evil, most iniquity, most flaws, let's say, if we're rolling with the idea that the biggest flaw in humanity is ignorance, I think that's like 80% true. We have a great example in our society today. One of the purposes of tradition is to pass on wisdom. Now, obviously, tradition isn't right necessarily about everything, but it's just what previous generations have learned and tried to pass down to their descendants. And we now live in a modern world that has thrown away most tradition, on some occasions for good reasons, but obviously there's a lot of baby in that bathwater. You know, at least in the US, something like 19% of high school graduates can't even read. So at the very least, we have a massive coincidence of ignorance, massive ignorance, and quite a bit of immorality. I don't think that's a spurious correlation. So that kind of makes you think that, like, okay, maybe evil just is ignorance. So then we look at which cultures or societies have kind of taken this idea the most seriously. Obviously, what we're sort of colloquially calling the Buddhist view of evil, most taken seriously in East Asia. Now, in a lot of ways, these cultures are some of the best on earth. You know, Japan has like almost no crime. So I'm not really using this as an opportunity to talk crap about any country or society or whatever, but it is worth noting that almost all of the biggest atrocities in human history happened in East Asia. You know, like the Japanese conquest of Manchuria, the Boxer Rebellion, there's a whole bunch of them. In fact, there's a good Wikipedia article called Biggest Man-Made Disasters by Death Count or something like that. And you'll notice that if you take the top 10, like at least half of them happen in East Asia. So it kind of makes you think like, maybe they're mostly right, but there's some important things that they're really missing. If you're viewing evil as something that's inherent in all people, that includes authorities and kings and emperors and stuff. And so if you're taking that idea seriously in a deep cultural way, then you come to expect that even from the most powerful people in society. See, like in Europe, medieval Europe, even though kings had all this power, there was this idea that even the king was subservient ultimately to God. Needless to say, a lot of these kings did plenty of atrocious things, but there was this idea that there is a higher standard than just the king. So yeah, to me, that's kind of the dividing line. I think the idea that evil is ignorance is true 80% of the time with most people, especially common, everyday people. But it's really useful to understand that, first of all, there are just people who are psychopaths. They're just born completely evil. Most people are pretty decent. Most people, if you raise them in a decent way and give them wisdom and teach them and stuff, they are going to turn out pretty okay. But there's a certain kind of person that can have all the facts. There can be a person who pretty much understands everything they need to understand. It can be told everything, and it's still just gonna do evil, horrible things. Some people just want to watch the world burn. I saw a child once playing with a ruby the size of a tangerine. Oh yeah, before we go, there's one last thing I kind of wanted to say about that kind of person. So like, I said the ignorance theory of evil maybe applies to like 80% of people. It's probably more than that. But, you know, that tiny minority of super genuinely evil people, it might be more important to recognize those people because they can just do an outsized amount of damage. All it takes is one Ted Bundy and 30, 40 people are murdered. So maybe that's why this is a little bit of an eternal question. It's hard to know whether the more banal, common forms of evil are worse than the extreme exceptions, because the exceptions can matter a whole lot. Man, there's just something about this Duncan. It gets me thinking philosophically. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of know another reason why the question of evil popped into my head. One of the last things I watched before I went to sleep last night, there's this viral video of some woman who drives her car into some parking lot or something, and she shoves this little dog out the door and just says bye-bye. This was caught on some security camera. She just takes this little black and white dog, looks like maybe a Chihuahua mix or something, puts it outside of the car and says bye-bye, shuts the door, and drives off. Just abandons this little dog in the middle of nowhere. It's just like one of the most, I don't even know how to describe it, one of the most just casually evil things I've ever seen. Because this dog, you can tell that it thinks it's going on a walk or something. Like obviously when you take a dog on a walk, you like put it outside the car and then he's all excited. So this dog is like looking around and like, yeah, we're going on a walk. But then he kind of like looks for the woman and she's not there, and he sees the car driving off and starts to go after the car. And then he realizes he can't catch up with the car and he's just like super afraid. There's just something about doing that to a helpless little dog. It's one thing if you're like doing something bad to somebody who's powerful or something like that. It's another thing when you have this thing that's completely dependent on you and just loves you, and you do something evil to that. It's like, what? That's not an ignorance thing. That's just like, you're just an evil person. So yeah, it was weirdly impactful on me for what it was. Definitely got me thinking about the nature of evil. Wow, somebody from Alberta, Canada. Check this out, dudes. Sold another big milkshake. That's 3 so far. This one's going to Quebec. This is amazing. So far, we have 2 big food items that are selling what I would call consistently at this point, at least for now. The milkshake and the big ice cream. That's epic. This is a thing. Like, this is a thing that was not the case before. This is what I like about launching products. Suddenly, there's just a new thing in the world. There's big milkshakes now. Let's get the big alien packaged up. Got a set of instrument hangers here. Of course, the violin hanger and the uke, both in matching white. Time to ship the very, very good boy German Shepherd. Little froggy dish. We have several things to paint, but we need our new item for the day. So it's gonna be the bread. Seeing some of the new big food items sell makes this really exciting, because I think we're digging in the right place. You know I had to say it. Let's get this bread. All right, time to get some stuff prepped for painting. This is an alligator skull, and it's gonna be a sunset fade as well. We're about to do the painting, but we got the bread slash toast listed. Probably gonna do it in a more toasty color, so it's more well done or whatever. But yeah, might be a big seller right here. All right, we got a big old German Shepherd boy here, going gold, going silver, sunset fade colors, Sharky colors, and we're waiting for this to dry, but we obviously are gonna tape off the eyes. And after, got the big gold boy, hippo, very nice sunset fade alligator. Of course, we got the Sharky, and still waiting for this to dry. Well, I think the thing I would be most grateful for today, it was nice getting out in the weather for a while, but it's nice to get the piece of bread finally listed. The more big food items I can put up, the better. So that's nice. Let's read some comments on Discord. Toasty O's says, could you give us a breakdown on the time you spend in the shop? When do you start? How many hours a day are you working generally? I am working all the hours of the day. I work about 14 hours a day every day. Wolfman Crab Arms says, you talking about how you look back on this time as you were in the early days of 3D printing got me reflecting back in my late teens. I had a small website where half the screen was a video player. My friends and I would stream videos, shows, movies, video games, etc. on. The other half of the page was a IRC chat window where people watching could talk with each other. We only averaged 30 to 60 people on any given day, but that was a lot for us. This was before Twitch. We definitely weren't the first or the only ones doing it, but just the idea that we were doing streams and live chat before it was really a big thing is a wild thing to reminisce about. That is pretty interesting. There's so many things that I feel like I should have stuck with. I'm glad that I am sticking with some things now. Yeah, in the early days of YouTube, I was making YouTube videos, like literally almost right when it came out. I often think like, maybe I should have just kept going. I don't know why I didn't. I probably would be one of those rich original YouTuber people, but like so many things, I just didn't follow through, which is really one of the many things that has motivated me to follow through with this. But enough about me. What are you grateful for today? What small moments of levity are you experiencing? What little joys populate your life like a festooned Christmas tree? I will probably give you a heart. I will probably give you an upvote. I like reading your feedback, and your thoughts are important to me. Thanks to each and every one of you for watching. I will see you on the next episode. Peace.